Well, you are tuned in to the F5 Recovery Podcast. This is One Pretty Ricky, and we're so thankful that you are here with us. We'd like to thank our sponsors, the F5 Project, as well as the Ridge Treatment and Recovery Center for sponsoring our show. We have a wonderful show today titled Overcoming Newcomers' Excuses. And so we're going to be joined with my co-host, Kirsten Huovinen, and we're going to talk about some other different perspectives on those who might come to meetings, but those who are trying to find their way not to come to meetings. So we're looking forward to it and hope you enjoy. Kirsten, how's it going?
It's going good.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
It's been a little bit, so
It has been.
I've just been getting ready for Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
Entertained with my kids, and that's about it. Yeah, you?
Yeah. It's been busy. So like we were traveling this past week. I went to San Francisco and to Denver.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, which was fun because like Jelsa actually came this time.
Yeah.
Because usually she's like, when I'm DJing, she's like, oh, okay, have fun.
You DJ'd in Denver and
San Francisco.
Really? How'd you get that gig?
These are just people I met online a number of years ago, and so we've been planning these parties since like February, sometime in the spring.
Yeah.
And so finally, all the alignment just kind of worked out to be able to do both. I was like,
what kind of party was it?
So the one in San Francisco was called No Big Deal. It's kind of like our crew name. Yeah. And so it was kind of remixes and edits and other different things that you found on like SoundCloud. So like taking your favorite song and then like some producers like spin on it. And so it was like all like unique kind of music that people kind of dance to. And then the one on Saturday, there's this company called Certis Designs. And they've been around for a couple of years, but they're kind of like, it started as a joke, and they were like, stay milky, silky daddy. They were just awesome. These two dudes.
Guess
and
you had to be there.
Yeah. So they were like, they dress up like milkmen, and so like the kind of shtick is that they work for Big Whole Milk, and so it's like death to soy and like stop milking almonds, and it's like all sorts of really funny things.
That was in Denver?
Yeah.
I could see where you'd have to be high to get that one.
So they had like merch and like all sorts of things, but they're like closing. So it was kind of like a going away party that they asked me to DJ for. And I was like, yeah, that's
pretty cool. How'd you meet them?
That was literally the internet. Like found on
kidding?
Instagram. Yeah. It's kind of crazy. It's just amazing how like connected the world can be. And they weren't on my radio before. And then I was like looking up their stuff. I'm like, oh man, these guys are like really creative and cool.
You're busy.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's been really good.
It's like my senile great grandma always said, it's not who you know, it's who you blow.
Yeah.
And I thought that's actually would probably work really good. Anyway, not that you've been doing that, but
I was like,
whatever.
I've been busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been good.
Yeah. So holidays are coming up.
Mm-hmm.
We had Thanksgiving. We had our annual gingerbread house contest that I do with my family, and it's always like very bizarre, creative. Like you have to draw. This year we did interior design.
Okay.
So you had to draw a ticket that said what your theme would be, like cat lady or minimalist or whatever. Okay. And then the challenge, which would have been like my dad, it was hilarious, but he drew cat lady interior design, and then he also drew blind. So the blind cat lady had like pet skunks instead of, it was really funny. Yeah. So anyway, so we do that every year, and I think the Shrek wedding won though in a barn. And then just Christmas concerts and meetings and all of those things. Yeah. And I have had a lot of, not a lot, but like in the last month, I've probably had 5 or 6 people come up to me and ask me about a relative that has a drinking problem.
Wow, okay.
And it's interesting how it's always like during the holidays it gets worse because you have to get together, and then you are like, well, what's your excuses? And like, well, I just, all the excuses we give to not be a part of something, or the fact that we don't have any money, or we're living in a trap house, the average things. But anyway, and it is really, I don't know how you handle these situations, but mostly I just want to help the family member because you have zero control over what what the addict in your life is doing, you know, and it's hard when it's family because you want to not watch them die.
Right.
But if you overinvest, then like you're dying. Like it spiritually starts to eat you alive. And I think a lot of times the family member always wants the addict or whatever to be like, go be uncomfortable. Are you willing to be uncomfortable to go to meetings? Are you, go take those actions. But then it's like, well, are you willing to also like either have a therapist, go to Al-Anon, do something like that for your own health? Because whether they get sober or don't get sober, you need to be okay with it, you know? Anyway, so it is hard to watch. It's hard to watch them like, they could have had this joyous holiday and they're just consumed with, trying to control someone else, which is exhausting. But
well, and it's hard. And I think, so in the beginning, being when I first got clean and going through the holidays and like, it was just, I'm not gonna lie, it sucked. Like, because it was a lot of questions. It was a lot of, because I got sober December 26th of 17. And so, like, it was a day after Christmas when I first, like, okay, I'm going to, like, stop. And then to go back a year, it was like a year later. And so, like, with my family, and it's crazy, like, the different perspectives on, like, how families, like, treat each other. Yeah. So, Jels's family is very kind of passive and just, like, they'll ask one question, like, grandma or somebody will just ask the one question, like, are you doing okay?
Yeah.
And they say, yep, I'm doing great. Like, and that's it. And so, like, I'm like, oh, okay. Whereas my family, it's like questions and like, let's talk about it. Like, who's your sponsor? And like all these things. And it's coming from a good place. Right. And they do, as you said, they do genuinely care. They want to make sure I'm doing okay. Right. But then it's just like, oh my God, like, I don't really want to dive that deep with someone who doesn't necessarily know any sort of addiction, doesn't really get anything about what I'm struggling with, and generally wanting to be concerned. But it's like, I'd rather talk with someone who at least has an addiction, or like as Adam talks about, like, that one drunk uncle, like that person's way more relatable. I know. Because then it's like, okay, you actually understand what I'm coming from. Even in whether you're being polite or you're not being polite, I can actually like share and say, hey, I'm struggling. Because the first time I told my mom I was triggered and I was struggling, she was like, let's pray, let's get to the Bible, let's do all these things. And I'm like, no, I'm not saying that to get help. I'm just saying because I want to be transparent, because that's what my program tells me to do. And it was a mistake. And it was just, it was too much. And I was like, okay, you know what? All right, Ma, I can't.
She's like, I saw this on Intervention.
Right. And then just coming something, I was like, no, Ma, like, no, that's not, I didn't tell you that to get help. Like, I'm getting help. I just want to bring you in, and I was like, nope, this was a mistake. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes, depending on what your family situation is, you kind of have to like tiptoe and like navigate, like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Yeah. Maybe I should just keep this for my meetings with my sponsor.
I know. And we're like, addiction's such a goofy illness because it's like that egomaniac with an inferiority complex. Like, I want you to notice me and be concerned about my well-being. Right. But stay out of my business. I hate it. You know what I mean? It's just so, it doesn't make sense. Yeah. But I think it's hard to, like, maybe we should explain addiction before we go into how hard it is, the excuses that you have for not getting it, you know? Right. And because I think a lot of people think that if you're sober, you're in recovery. Right. And that's just not the case. That's not the case. Like, if that was the case, then detox centers would pump out winners. You know what I mean? But it's not about getting sober. It's like if you were born with a headache and you, at maybe the age of 13, maybe you're at a 4-H thing, maybe you're in a tent, maybe there's cute boys. Anyway, if you're born with a headache and somebody at that age gives you an aspirin, it's like what happened to me when I got drunk for the first time. It was like all of a sudden, everything was clear. There was no more headache. It was just like, oh my gosh, I can relax. This is what everybody else feels like. Right. But you can't maintain half drunk from 13 on, you know? Right. So, but that was my medicine. And so otherwise, when it's sober, it's like this spring in your gut. And I don't have to explain it to you, but it just gets tighter and tighter. And I can't explain it. And I don't know why everything is so much work. And why everybody wants something. And 40 hours of work a week seems a bit much. And you know what I mean? Everybody's an idiot all of a sudden. And then if I drink or use something again, I just relax, So recovery has nothing to do with getting sober. I can get sober. I can stay sober for a while. I can do all those things, but I can't enjoy my life at the same time. So recovery has everything to do with that connection and learning how to live life on life's terms with like some dignity and emotional maturity and blah, blah, blah. But in all of the people I've worked with, this is an illness that tells you don't have it. Right. It really tells you, like, you're fine, you're good, you're good. I don't know what they want from you, Why don't they just mind their own business? Right. But care about me. I mean, it's so like, push-pull. Anyway, and so you got sober the day after Christmas. So I'm sure that people had pleaded with you before that to get your act together and whatever. Why the day after Christmas did it click with you? Because it's not like every family member is looking for the magic word. What do I tell them?
To get, And so mine it was actually just circumstantial. So, because the day before, my flight had gotten delayed. And so the day after, like, it was on Christmas. Yeah, it was on Christmas Day. I was at Dempsey's, playing blackjack or whatever with my former boss or whatever, and then we had a flight, got to California, and so when you're around your family, this is, with my family, everybody's on top of each other. It's constant, you're never really alone, unless you go to the bathroom, then people leave you alone. But as soon as that bathroom door is open, everybody's just right on, and that's just how our family just operates. And so I never really got a chance to go out or go drink or go gamble or do anything, because it was just everyone is constantly with each other. And so then when I got back home, back to Fargo, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'm going to back home now. I can drink, I can gamble, I can do all my things now. And then the cops show up at my work. So then it's oh, okay, so I can't just go, life isn't just going to go back to normal now.
Oh, you hadn't been charged yet?
No.
Okay. And so when you get back, and so it's Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Here's your, what was your charge? What did it
was a Class B felony for theft. Yeah. I think it was the 10 to 50,000 or something. Because
it was very public. It was very paper. Yeah. Yeah,
and so and that was the weirdest, wildest part. Because before, because leaving and going to California, I was oh yeah, I'm in my addiction, just oh yeah, life is good, and I'm okay, I'm gonna take 2 weeks off.
Extra money.
I'm gonna be be chill. I'm gonna have my time with my family, and then as soon as I get back, and I know I'm already pre-planning if obviously as you
for sure.
As an addict, okay, I can't wait because I know where I'm gonna go.
Yep.
I know how much money I'm pulling out of the ATM, all of it. I had it pre-planned. I was thinking about it on the plane. I just can't wait to get back to Fargo, be back in my own element, and be away from my family, and just kind of be back to my secretive life again, and all that just changed.
Yeah.
And so it was just such a and then it was having to tell my parents, who I just saw 2 weeks ago, that not only I got fired and about to, probably gonna get charged, I don't know, but then I have to tell them about this addiction that I've had for since 21, 20, something like that, 12, 13 years, something like that.
Was it that much of a surprise to him, or was it
It was a shock.
Yeah.
And so, but I think
good at hiding it.
And
you weren't there. You weren't there.
Which that's what made it easier to be here, right. Because I am far away, and, I only tell them what you want to tell them, just, everyone has their own secrets. So I'm this was mine.
Yeah.
But I think what the hardest part was having that conversation with my mom of how she started to take it on it was her fault.
Yeah,
how come I didn't feel, or me, how come I didn't feel comfortable enough to tell her that I was struggling? Yeah. And she knew, she was you're drinking a lot, cause she would see different posts, cause of course. And so it was she would mention it, but it was never to a point of really do something about it. Or maybe she did, and I just was so far in my addiction.
Right.
I was you just want in one ear, out the other. And so like, it was just, and that was hard. That having that conversation and not only like came on, got fired, potentially going to get, charged. I don't know. I took this money from work and I have an addiction. And so like, it was like, how? And I was like, I don't know how. I don't know why. And I still don't know why. And that was 6 years ago. Yeah. Like, I still don't know why me, why not my sister? You know what I mean? Right. Like, I never really went into that. But it's like, Ma, this isn't your burden. So then now I'm trying to like help her through while I'm still don't even know what the heck I'm doing. Right. But now I'm just like, I don't want you. I'm already low, and now I'm feeling even lower. Yeah. And then that's when I just took that, and that's why I was like, I'm just gonna take my life, because I'm like, not only like do I not know how to deal with my own emotions and how to like all of a sudden like now I'm an addict now, and I've never said that before. Now my mom is feeling this pain. Yeah. I'm like, I can't take that, and that's why I just decided, I was like, oh, this is the direction I'm going to go. Yeah. Because I didn't know how else to cope. Yeah. And like, I'm glad she told me how she, that she was feeling that way. But a part of me was like, I wish she didn't. I wish she didn't share that, because I was already vulnerable, and that was just too much. Yeah. Just way too much. And so then did you go into treatment? Was that part of your sentence, or? I did treatment before so I didn't get sentenced until August. So that's 8 amazing. Months. For real. Yeah. And so, but it was just like, well, I'm going to go to treatment. And that was, Joseph was like, well, we're not doing this. So either you're going to figure this out or you're not. So I'm just, you decide how you want this to go. Yeah. And it was kind of so there was other pressure. Like the job crumbled. Yep. The marriage is like, get it together. I can't be this wife. Yeah. Yep. Because it's like, what? And again, and the wild part was like, this was an addiction that I had even with my ex-wife. So like my ex-wife didn't know. And so it was like, because again, it was just a very personal, internal Well, if people journey. Know about it, they make you stop. Yeah. So, so a lot of people are like, I had no idea that they even drank. Well, yeah, because then you'd make me stop. Right, exactly. Yeah. The only people who knew were the people I was drinking and gambling with. Ones that did the same stuff. Yeah, because I was like, those are my friends. Like, I was like, they really know me. Yeah, they really know. Yeah, they help me. They help guide me to make sure that I'm... Where were they when I went to treatment? I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, so then it was just like, all right, so then I was like, okay, well, I have to figure this out. Like, as soon as, like, I couldn't, my mom wouldn't let me, like, to the story of, like, she's just stayed on the phone when I was, like, made up my mind that I was going to kill myself. My mom just stayed on the phone, like, I just couldn't do it. Like, she just would not let me get off the phone to go do it, because I was like, I'm not going to kill myself while my mom's on the phone. When she stayed on the phone, and so after that point, when I, like, truly broke down and then told her, like, this is what I was going to feel, and she helped me find the clubhouse, so, like, Googled it, and she had called, and, like... there's nothing like a black woman's threat of like, I will fly out and come beat your behind if you don't go. So I was like, yep. So I went to the clubhouse, got connected to recovery, and then they kind of like guided me to treatment and like all the things. Like, I am forever grateful for those folks who were at that first clubhouse meeting. How heavy is that door, though? Oh my gosh! I mean, figuratively it was like, and literally, physically. Yeah. And it's like right around the corner from my house. Like, so I'm walking there and I'm seeing like the people outside smoking, and I'm just like. And it's like, what am I going to do? I don't fit in, and it's just this, like, I'm feeling like this big, and I'm like, okay, I got to walk through that door. And so I just grabbed the handle, and then, like, I think you have to push or it pulled. It was just an awkward, and I was like, I had so many opportunities to just leave. Yeah. But I was like, well, I can't leave because my mom's going to come. My mom's going to come. My mom's going to come. It makes no sense, right? Yeah, my mom's going to come. Somehow she talked to somebody. Maybe she didn't. I don't even know. I never actually asked, like, Mom, who'd you talk to? But I was like, well, I got to go. And so then, like, I go in this, like, in the little lobby and see the soda machine, and I'm just trying to be like cool. Yeah, I know what I'm doing. Hey, I'm not new here. Yeah, I know. I don't look like a deer in headlights. So then the guys are sitting in a little side room on the couch, and they were like, "Hey," and I was like, "Hey," and I'm oh my God, I was just trying to be so cool. Yeah. And like, I don't know why in my mind I was like, I have to be cool. Like, be cool, Rick. Like, I know. And then I just sit down. And then we go into the other room for the meeting. This is the first time I've ever been to any sort of like anonymous meeting before, and so like they have the chants and like smashing the table, like hitting the table, and just all these things. I was like, this is my life now. And I was like, okay, doomed to nothing. Yep. And I'm like the youngest guy in there, but it was great. And so then they gave me. gave me a coin, like, and just like was like everyone was just so happy that I was there.
Yeah.
And I was like, you guys don't know what I've done. You don't know what brought me here, right? Like,
oh, we know.
And that's what it was. But it was one of those like the most welcoming experiences.
Yeah.
Once I got over myself and just like
that's the
stayed,
ticket.
and I was like, okay.
Because you have to be uncomfortable. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable. Know that this is not going to be awesome to walk into.
Yeah.
Like I think there's a lot of misconception when you get sober that it's like, well, we're all going to be happy to get. It just doesn't. No, you're sober. You're not in recovery yet. Right. Sober is a miserable place where everything feels so 10 times, like everything feels harder and. And you feel like everybody's looking at you and talking about you and thinking about you, and absolutely nobody but me is thinking about me. And but there's so many. If I had, like, I'll just try and remember the list of excuses that I've given or have heard or whatever. And a lot of times, like when I first started going to meetings, I couldn't get there sober. I couldn't be in public sober. It just was. I wasn't going to be able to do it. Oh. And I went to the first, months and months worth of meetings under the influence of something. And nobody ever said, hey, you got to be sober to be here. They just said, keep coming back. And I didn't know what else to do. It was so uncomfortable. Oh my gosh, it was like walking into a junior high dance or something with a bad perm and my corrective shoes, and I never had a date till college, and oh God, anyway. But it's so uncomfortable and nobody prepares you for that. But if you're not willing to be uncomfortable, you're not going to get better. And you can't, this isn't an illness you can do alone. Right. You can get better from alone. I know a lot of people are like, well, I have an uncle who, he quit drinking, he's fine. Right. Well, there's always an anomaly somewhere for everything. Yep. But the vast majority find happiness with other people in the same sinking ship. You just, it baffled my mom, who was very much like your mom, and just like, I would breathe for you if I could. How's everything? How's your mental health? And I'm like, we don't need to talk about this. Yes. And like, stay out of my, I don't want any accountability. I don't want to tell you that I'm going to meetings because then you'll ask about them, and I don't need that. But she just very much wanted to help. And so I can't tell you how many therapists and psychologists and all of these people that I saw that had me talk about more about me, which seemed to just make things worse, which once you know what addiction is, you can see how, obviously that made it worse. It's like the wrong treatment. Right. And then, so all of this help and all this money they put into treatments and all this stuff. And then I go to church basement, talk with other boobs in the same situation as me that can't get their stuff together. Oh my gosh. And I quit. I just got sober and my life got better. You know what I mean? It blew her mind. And I don't know why I kept going, because I lied about everything in my life. But then I had a court card that I had to get signed, so I thought I legitimately had to get it signed. Right. Anyway, but the biggest things I hear are the God thing. And just don't think about it. You know what I mean? If the prayer bothers you, don't think about it. If whatever bothers you, you're there to not die is what you're there for. And I can promise you that if my dealer and or bartender said, hey, before I serve you, or before we do this line, we're just going to say the Lord's Prayer, I'd have been on my knees quicker than I was in college. Right. You know what I mean? It would just been, I'd have been like, now. But then when we get to a meeting, I'm like, well, I don't know, I might have been offended by that. So you know what I mean? Like, you don't have room to be offended. You're going to die, you know? Yes. Oh, man. And they always say the first thing you get back when you get sober, which kills you, is your opinion. And it's so true, because suddenly I know. Anyway, what were your excuses? Or you just were like, I'm here. Oh, it's all great.
No, well, I think a lot of my excuses were just the inconvenience. Oh, yeah. Mine was a favorite. Like, it was never a convenient time. So, like, because of the clubhouse, which is actually where I got my first sponsor, my sponsor was was in AA and GA, and so he's like, you should probably come to GA.
Yeah,
like
look at
I was
you.
like, oh, okay. I was like, whatever.
What's your charge?
And so then, so they had GA was on, it was Monday nights, Thursday nights, and Saturday mornings at the time. And I'm like, oh man, there's so much time in between these meetings, and if I can't make Monday, and so then, but then I was like, well, I was in treatment on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so I was like, well, there's just way too much time, which is like so funny because I was like, I would make time. Like I would stay up late. I would like find all the ways to make sure that I could go out and like drink and like gamble. And then when the bars would close, at 2:00,
right.
And I found out that you can gamble online on your phone. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. So I could literally gamble 24 hours,
8
on
o'clock
good money.
was too late.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh no, man, these Monday night meetings, like this is inconvenient. It's only on Mondays and Thursdays. Can't they do a Wednesday? And then I'm starting to like try to negotiate when the meetings time we're gonna be. Yeah. And I was like, what is going on? Like I'm like finding I'm being inconvenienced by this meeting.
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous because there's like, there's meetings literally, and now obviously that I've been going, like, even if I didn't go to GA, because I was still going to AA, because my sponsor was like, well, if that's too, bless my sponsor's heart, he was like, well, if these meeting times are inconvenient, you can come with me to the nooner. Yeah. It's every day at noon. And I was like, well,
I didn't want a solution.
No, exactly. I just wanted to complain. I wanted you to like agree with my complaint that these meetings do suck. Like, no, he was like, no, there's we can just go to the noon. Like, don't you have a lunch break at noon? I was like,
I don't have a job.
well, yeah, but I don't, but I don't want to go to a nooner. I don't want to sit there on my lunch break. Like, my lunch break is my time. And just all these things, like, it was just so like, oh my gosh, just the inconvenience, quote unquote, of like when these meetings was like my biggest like. But again, I didn't look at it from the perspective of like, this is going to save my life. Yeah. Or that, not too long ago, I want to kill myself. Yeah. But now these meetings are inconvenient.
They are.
Or now I don't want to like, I don't want to talk about me in treatment. I want to ask the questions rather than be asked. I'm like, come on, get over yourself. And it was just like looking back, it made so much sense.
I know.
In the beginning, it made so much sense to me that I was like, no, this, like my feelings are valid. This is an inconvenience. Yes. This does suck. Like I hate having to explain it. I hate that my face is in the paper all the time. Like all these things are like, as you said, this is like the worst. I'm in the worst period of my life. I'm like, man, things were in my mind were so much better when I was just drinking and gambling.
Right.
And I'm like, how in the world me stopping, which is supposed to be helping me, making my life worse. And I'm like, this is dumb.
I know.
This is miserable.
I know.
I hate it.
And without the willingness to do the legwork, it's just like, I want to have a fit physique or whatever, but the exercise part, don't want it. And then I'll sit at home and be pissed that I'm not jacked, but I'm doing no work. It's the same with recovery. Like, I want to be happy and free, and I want to be like you look, but I'm not willing to be uncomfortable.
Right.
And then I do say things like, I don't like change. Well, if I were to give you $1 million, you would like change. Yeah. It's like like you said, I don't like the inconvenience. I don't like being inconvenienced. And once the heat is off, like I functioned like I'd go till the whole thing fell down, and then I'd pull it together for a while till it kind of smoothed over and they're done asking questions. And then I burned it down again. It was just like repeat,
cyclical.
And so to go to meetings was like, well, it's a cult. They're cliquey. Yeah. But if it was a cult, in a cult, people do what they're told. In recovery, they don't.
They don't.
They're cliquey. Well, they just know each other. Right. And you're new there. So just introduce yourself. And just think, was I willing to do this in my addiction? Was I willing to do this? They always say it's not an addiction until you've sucked a dick for it. And so that does translate to recovery now that I think about it. But that's probably not suggested. But anyway, whatever keeps you at the meeting is good enough.
Right.
But a lot of times it's like, well, now that I'm sober, why do I have to give up every night to recovery? Or my family wants me home now or whatever. And I can do that. I can not do the meetings, and I can be at home.
Right.
And I will be a horrible mother because I've tried it. I've just become someone who's short-tempered, and I like the levity of life kind of leaves me, and that spring gets tighter and tighter. And that still happens. I have been around for over 20 years, and yes, I did sober up in my early, like 5-ish. I sobered. Anyway, but it still plays out because it's still an illness, and it's just doesn't go away. You know, it's just like if you were diabetic or whatever. Without taking care of your physical body, nothing else can happen good outside of that. So it's worth giving up a couple evenings to be a better mom and a better wife and to just find joy in life, you know? And I'm just trying to think of the other excuses I've heard. There's so many. There's so many. Anyway, yeah, they're cliquey. The God thing is a huge one. Yeah. And I just think we start to pick something apart when it's healthy for us. I'll pick the words apart, and I'll make it so it doesn't apply to me because this is an illness that tells you don't have it. And I have heard people say, you know, I'll say, hey, have you thought about maybe going to meetings or anything like that? Connect with sober people. And they're like, well, no, but there's this new drug, experimental. I'm willing to try that. And I'm like, you're willing to try an experimental drug that could kill you instead of just going to this free meeting where you don't have to sign anything. It's not a pyramid scheme, nothing. People are nice there. If you want to be a part of it, you can be. No insurance involved. Right. Super cheap. We'll stick with the experimental drug. I mean, it's really crazy. When you say it out loud, it's crazy. But when you're in the, as an addict, thinking about it, you're like, no, this makes total sense to do it like this.
Because I'm just replacing one drug with another drug. Yeah.
Yeah, you have something that tells you don't have it. Right. You might have to trust somebody else's thinking for a while. And that's humbling, you know? That's humbling to get to a place in your life where you're like, I guess I got to get another grown-ass person to tell me what to do, you know? Or they're like, I don't want to get a sponsor if somebody tell me what to do. Well, the law's been telling you what to do for years. You haven't listened to them either. So just, you know, just give it a shot. What do you have to lose? And one of the great things I heard when I first got sober, after I'd been using for months and months into the meetings or whatever, a woman said to me, just give it 100% for 3 months. 100%. They will. The drug market will take a hit, but it'll still be here at the end of 3 months if you want to go back to it. You know, they always say we'll refund your misery if you don't want this, but just give it 100%. If people say let's go to coffee, say yes. If people are like let's hang out and go to movies, say yes. Just do all the things, and if it doesn't get better, you can have it back. Just that easy. But even that 3-month commitment felt really hard, but I was just desperate enough, you know. And there was anything in my family that anyone could have said the magic word to make me get sober. Right. There just wasn't. It was good that they expressed their concern, but like you said, it really did. Knowing that I was causing them heartache made it harder for me to be around them because I knew I couldn't sober up. I just knew it. I could not imagine a life sober, and I didn't want to break their heart anymore. So. And I didn't want to be asked all the questions and be a failure again. Right. Or I didn't want to say, I'm going to get sober this time, and then not do it again, you know. I was just tired of being a disappointment. And I don't know what the magic thing is. If I could figure it out, we'd be millionaires, you know. Because it's such a invasive, it's just like, I don't know, it's an illness that has no forgiveness, you know. So it's hard to watch families. I think that's the hardest part. But there is Al-Anon. There is there is religious organizations. There's so many people you can talk to to keep your own sanity, because when my brother called me, I was probably, I don't know, 10 years sober, and my brother called and said, listen, I got to sober up. And and it was like divine intervention. I don't know. But I just remember telling him, Ray, this is really hard. And so if you don't ever get sober, I love you anyway. No matter what. Just know that first and foremost. Secondly, I can't help you. I can't be the one to help you. I will connect you with as many people as I can, but I'm too emotionally involved in your life to be helpful to you. And luckily, it doesn't always turn out that way, but luckily he got in touch with a couple guys that I know that go to meetings, and he's been sober since then, and he's been an active member of AA, and I don't know, I'm probably his biggest fan. I think he's the greatest, but I got lucky, you know what I mean? Yeah. But just to know that, like, had he never gotten sober, I would hate for him to think that because of that I cut off communication with him, or he was a disappointment to me somehow. Right. That's just not like, I don't know. I always think, like, a lot of times they're like, well, I'm going to set up a boundary. If he drinks again, he cannot talk to me. I'm like, well, that's not really a boundary. A boundary is something that you set up inside yourself. Like, if he drinks again, I'm going to just not give him money, but I'll continue to be kind and loving. You know what I'm saying? Right. So anyway, it's just, I think people get scared and their feelings get hurt, and a lot of unnecessary actions get taken within families that are crushing, you know, that are crushing. They're hard to come back from. But anyway.
Well, I want to thank, before we go to our next segment, I want to thank the F5 Project and the Rehabilitation and Recovery Treatment Center, two of our amazing sponsors who help fund this podcast. And, of course, want to thank Tel over in their studios as well. Just always awesome that we just have such great people who want to support us and want us to be able to continue to get our message out. So thank them for sure. And I think you had talked about a little bit of when Ray had called and had said that, hey, I'm ready to get sober. How difficult was it for you to be able to say, hey, I'm really happy, I love you, but I can't help you? Was there like, because I'm assuming, right, your immediate response is like, okay, great, I'm 10 years clean, I know everything what to do, we're going to this meeting, you just come along on this journey, we're going to do this. How difficult was it for you to not do that? Not to be like, okay, I'm sister, I'm going to come in and just, we're going to do this, and be like, you know, hey, you need to do this. Like, I'm proud of you, but you need to do this for you, and I can guide you, but I'm not going to do it with you.
Really difficult because, you know, you wait for that day, and you just think. And before that, we always hung out. I mean, it was his secret too, you know. So it wasn't obvious and out in the open because it has to be a secret, or somebody's going to take it away. Right. So, but we had talked before, and I knew that it was something that he'd hint at struggling with it, or I'd noticed that, like, he'd do the old trick of, like, if somebody leaves the room, I'm going to drink all of my drink and then back down to where it was before they come back, so they don't think I had an extra one, you know. Anyway, things like that. So you just kind of like you kind of just give him to the universe and just say, okay, well, you pray for him or whatever your thing is. Right. You know, you just wish them better. But when he called, my immediate thing was, okay, oh my gosh, I can save you. Finally, you're calling. Now we can do this, you know. But I had been around long enough, or I knew enough to just know that I would wreck this for him because I would make him feel like there was undue pressure, or he had to do, you know, I don't know. It's just a different pressure with family. And I had watched it, you know, in the 10 years I was sober. I was also working as a counselor, and I'd seen it go the other way so many times, where then all of a sudden you have a family member that's like a helicopter family member who wasn't there before, but now is like all up in your biz. And I just had to trust that the universe, God, whatever, was in control. I couldn't be the boss of that one. Yeah. Because even if there was no higher intervention, he's in control of that. And that's for him to decide. The biggest thing, I just knew in my gut immediately, I didn't want him to think that I thought less of him if he didn't make it. Because I know how hard it is. And you watch so many people try and not get it. And then families crumble, or they no longer support him anymore. And then the addict feels like, well, they don't love me anymore because I can't get sober. Right. Well, I can't get sober because I'm sick. I know it looks to the outside that I have a choice to pick up that drink or drug. I know that looks like a choice. But when you're in here, you just don't have that choice. You just lose the choice. And it's so hard to explain. In fact, if we could explain it, we wouldn't be doing things like this.
Right.
Anyway, and I just knew it would take a while for him to be comfortable in recovery. And it's just like Cheers. Like, I'm probably dating myself. But I'm sure that the first time or the 30th time that Norm walked into the bar, nobody said Norm. You know what I mean? It's just the same thing with meetings. You're just not, unless you get involved and stay there on a regular basis, if you stay as committed as Norm was to that bar stool with meetings, you will walk in and they'll be like, Ricky, you know what I'm saying? It does happen. It just takes, are you willing to be uncomfortable?
Right.
And so but I did want to swoop in and save him. I wanted him to get the best sponsor and go to the best meetings and hear the best things. You know what I mean? Like if I'd go to a speaker meeting with him, I'd be like, I hope the speaker doesn't suck because he needs this, which is awesome because now I'm not thinking about myself, so my life gets better, But I also relied on my sponsor during that time and other people that I had known go through these situations. And I just knew that I didn't know. So I just took their suggestions and, luckily for us and our family, it worked out great. And now we share this really cool experience in life,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was definitely one of the things when I first started coming, because the book was called One Day at a Time, but like I couldn't see one day at a time. I couldn't there was no sort of recollection, but like every time I would go to a meeting, I would be afraid because I'm like, what if I make really good friends in this meeting? What if we get really connected? And what if I don't come back? What if I don't show back up? And so for me, it's like I had no idea if this was going to work, because I've been addicted for a lot longer than I was clean, and so I don't know what clean looks like. I mean, before I was 18, I was in high school. Everything was different. So it was like my literally entire adult life has been involved in this addiction. And so what do I do now? What does this even look like? How do I don't want to go to a meeting. I don't want to get bonded. And I think that was one of my definitely excuses. Okay, I'm going to keep going to different meetings because I don't want to get close to anyone. Because what if I don't show back up?
Yeah.
What if I go back out? And I was I had this weird obsession and trauma of what if I become like the people, because I would hear the stories of people who would go in and out, in and out, in and out, and I was like, oh no, I don't want to be like them. And so then I was like, but I also don't want to get too close to anyone, so I'm going to go to this one nooner meeting, but if I go to another nooner, I'm going to go to a different nooner. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to go to this candlelight meeting, I'm going to go to a different, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm getting too close. All right, I'm going to just bounce out. I'm like, all right, I'm going to start going to NA. It was just bouncing around. And I think it was my compulsive gambling mind of I have to do all the things. I can't just commit to one because if I get too close to anyone, that's going to be that accountability here. Or I'm going to have the same conversation that I had with my mom of how uncomfortable and how sad I was feeling because of how much pain I was putting her through. Right. So what if I put somebody else in that same pain who cares about me?
Yeah.
And it was just I couldn't do it.
Feel bad again.
Yeah, and then I'm gonna I'm gonna feel bad, and I'm gonna want to kill myself again because I'm disappointing more people now, and I don't even know these people, but somehow they were so important. So I was like, man,
all of this happened in your head in the parking lot before you even got.
Oh, absolutely. And I was like, yep, nope. And so I'll go to this meeting, and if this, and that's was I would try to find, like you said, you were talking about, like, oh, I wanted to go to the best meetings, have best sponsors.
Yeah.
I was trying to find the worst meetings.
Yeah.
I was trying to find, like, all the reasons why I should not keep coming
to not
be clean and sober. And it just, there was never a bad meeting.
Yeah.
And it's,
you got lucky.
Yeah.
I've been to some doozies.
Have you? Because I was like, no, like every next, I think my higher power knew I needed, like, all my meetings were just like spot on.
Yeah.
Where I was in my life, it helped me with my relationship with my wife. It's just like all the things that I needed exactly here at that moment. Somebody had shared. And I was like, dang it, these meetings, like, all right, let me go to another meeting. Better. Yeah, and it's like it kept getting better, and the meetings kept getting good, and I was like, so finally I was just like, I just need to stop running. Yeah. Even though I was running, like, I need to stop running to all these different meetings and just pick one. Yeah, I just pick a meeting. And then finally I was like, okay, you know what? Fine. I'm just going to get a sponsor. And I just said it like that. I was like, oh, I'm just going to get a sponsor. They keep telling me I need to get a sponsor.
Get these people off my back.
You're right. I'm just going to just have the sponsor. And treatment was like, oh, you know, you need to keep coming. It's like, oh, fine. I'm all right. I'm going to keep coming. Like, I'm going to actually, like, commit to doing the assignments. I'm going to commit to getting a sponsor. I'm going to commit to actually try to, like, read the blue book every day. You know, I'm like, okay, you know, I'm going to, fine. It was kind of like, I was just, like, fed up with, like, trying to do it my way. Yeah. And once I just...
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting.
But I felt like it was like, okay, this was... Somehow this made more sense. I was like, fine. I'm just going to take the easy way out, I guess. And then, surprise, surprise, everything got better. It worked. Everything worked. And it just clicked. And then, like, the meetings made more sense. And then I felt like I gave better talks, and, like, I was able to actually talk through some things. Yeah. And then, you know, when I was having some of the people that were in treatment, like, would go back out and different things, like I was willing to, like, welcome them back in, and, like, so the same things that I was afraid that was going to happen, I was able to do. Yeah. And it just happened out of nowhere. I don't know what changed. I don't know why all of a sudden, but I was just becoming, like, way more involved. I was becoming the people that, like, connected and, like, wrapped my arms around, like, hey, Kirsten, like, I'm glad you made it. And, like, that's what I was afraid to, like, have happen for me. But then I was doing it for other people, and then I felt so good about it, and it was cool to see somebody else's response. Like, when I'm like, Kirsten, I'm so glad you're back, and seeing them like, oh my gosh, you remember my name, like, and that's, I think deep down what I always wanted, but I was just so afraid to have happen. And now that it's happened, I'm like, I can't see any other way.
I know, and it's really easy comparatively to what I thought was going on. Yeah. There's a lot of, like, when you were talking about being in treatment, a lot of times people would get out of treatment and then they'd say, I'm just sick of recovery. I've been doing this I need a break. Like, no, do not let off the gas. Yep. Like, you don't need a break. You need just to do it different.
Oh, yeah, I said that after 28 days.
Yeah, I need a break.
I need
this
a break.
Is a lot.
I've been doing a lot for these.
You didn't take your foot off the gas when you were using. So,
right, exactly.
You know,
like, oh, man,
why do that?
I've done so
why do that
much.
Now? And I've also watched, you know, people get sober and then they're like, I always like this, they do steps 1, 9, and 12. Like, hey, I'm an addict. Sorry about that. And I'm going to save everybody. You know what I mean? And that's a great thing. It's awesome. The only thing that I've seen become troubling with that, and for myself too, because I've done this, is, like, I turned that into a career. So now I was at LADC, and I loved it, and I loved all of it. The 20 years I did it, loved it. I still love it. When it got unhealthy was when my job became my recovery. Instead of, like, and that's what, you know, it's really makes you nervous with professions like peer support or LACs or, you know, therapists. My first sponsor said, if this job becomes your recovery, you have to quit because you'll lose, you know, you'll lose your mind. And I thought, oh, whatever, you know. Right. And sure enough, I had little kids, and I'm like, oh, I do enough of this all day, every day. Right. And it's just different. It's hard to explain why it's different. It's just different. Right. And because there's an expectation with a job that, you know, you got to do your job, and there's not really, when I personally go to meetings, I can be a boob, and, you know, it'll work out. Right. But when I quit being, like, giving it away freely, when I quit being available at meetings or to be helpful, my world just got really small, and And because they say whatever you put before your recovery, you're going to lose. And it's just really true. If I say, well, I need time at home with my kids because my kids missed me and now I'm sober and blah, blah, blah. That just doesn't work out. I have to be healthy or I can't enlarge upon any other part of my life. And it's so simple. It's just like a few hours a week, you know, to keep my sanity. And it's so worth it. But believe me, I will try every other way to do that. And it never has worked out for me in all of the different ways I've tried. You know, it's never worked out. And so, and if you could tell people with other illnesses, like, if you just went to a couple of meetings a week, you'd be fine, you'd be happy, and you wouldn't have any more symptoms. They'd be like, sign me up, you know? But we have to convince people to come, and like, they're totally desperate until they get to that first meeting, and then they're like, actually, I overreacted. Sorry.
I'm okay. And I think, so when do you think, like, for you first started, like, helping out, like doing the coffee and setting up the chairs and a lot of things? Because, like, I think I was 2 years before I started, like, doing, like, because you talked about, like difference, being of service to other people. Like, that was never on my radar to, like, do. And even though, like, it was encouraged, like, I mean, I saw the need, but I was just, like, was not in that place. And I think the difference was right when I started doing that because I was doing more service work for F5. So when I started working for F5 and just realized, like, how, like, meaningful it was, then I was like, oh, okay, I should start doing the same. I'm getting paid to do this with F5. I should start doing this for volunteer, for, like, GNA and all that. But, like, at what point do you feel like, okay, I need to do this. Like, I need to be of service. I need to, instead of it being just about showing up.
The whole give it away to keep it. You have to give it away to keep it.
Give it away to keep it.
Which didn't ever make sense until it does make sense, you know? Luckily, I got sober when I got sober, it was in a small town, and I found a meeting that was all guys and all my age. So that was all I needed. I'll keep going to that one. But luckily, that was a group of guys that was really active, and they just said, okay, you've been here 2 weeks now, you know, or whatever, just immediately. And do you have a sponsor? I'm going to get you a job at your home group, which just means, like, set up chairs, make coffee, do things like that. They let me be the treasurer. I stole a lot of money. I did repay it, but that's a dumb thing to give a new person anyway. But it was immediately, and I think I was only sober 3 months before they're like, you're going to sponsor her. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And they're like, that's perfect. You go talk to her, and then you talk to me, and then I'll tell you what to say. And it just, like, worked out beautifully. And the more you give altruistically, the more full and big my life becomes. And I always thought, well, I have to deal with all this trauma and all this stuff from before and whatever. Well, that's putting the cart before the horse, or whatever they say. Because if I'm not sober, I can't deal with any of that stuff anyway. So just get sober, get stable in your sobriety, find a sponsor. You will get to working through all of the crap from before. It's not going anywhere. So just leave it packed for now, and try and figure out how do you get yourself to a meeting and stay there, you know? And initially it's an addiction, right? So you're just addicted to the next thing that makes you feel better, you know? And so I started going to meetings, and I found out I really like boys. So I became a really effective stalker, you know what I mean? Anyway, but that was my focus. And then work, and then money, whatever it is. If it keeps you going to the meetings, good. If it's guilt that keeps you going, good. Whatever keeps you going until maybe something clicks and suddenly you want to go. I'd always say, how long do you have to go to meetings? They're like, well, till you want to. And I thought, that's dumb. What a dumb. Is that another, like, cliche? Is that a little bookmark somewhere? Anyway, but yeah, immediately I was involved in doing, getting out of my own head, getting out of my own way.
Well, actually, I think and that's what I love about recovery, is that everyone's recovery journey is so different. How your journey started, how my journey started, how Adam's journey started, is all very different. We're on the same path. We read the same books. We do the same things. but like, it doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate point is like, no matter what excuses, no matter what thoughts, whatever is going to get you there, just get there. And then however it's supposed to happen will happen as long as you continue to just get there.
Yeah. If you're willing to be uncomfortable, you're going to be uncomfortable. This is going to suck. It's not a worksheet you did. This is actually going like boots on the pavement or whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
I'm not real good on the sayings today. Yeah.
Well, again, we want to thank F5 Project and the Ridge and Recovery Center for being a sponsor of this podcast. Kirsten, thank you so much for just being on the podcast with me. I appreciate you. Just an awesome co-host. And again, as we're kind of wrapping up, is there anything you want to kind of share? Maybe kind of give some of those newcomers who are still on the fence about committing and going to that meeting again?
Just go. Whether you have a thing against or for 12-step programs, whatever. At the end of the day, you just need to meet other sober people. I mean, we can all agree that is a necessity. You need to have other connections that are sober, that don't live in a trap house, that aren't a bartender, that aren't the ex, and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Just other sober people. Even if you take away all of the steps or all of the everything, just meet other sober people at the end of the day. And even if you've been around a while and you're too busy and you have all the excuses, just go. It's such an easy fix. Right. And if you have a family member that's struggling, just love them in spite of. You can love somebody and not give them money or let them stay on your couch. You know what I mean? Because they will figure it out. We are survivors. We will absolutely figure out where to sleep. So, anyway, just never give up. Never give up. It's not like a black and white thing. You don't have to get here and stay sober forever. If you get here and you're sober 6 months out of the year, every year, that's better than it was before. Just Yeah, just get there. Just get there. And you'll be uncomfortable and it'll be fine.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It may be hard to feel right now because it's already uncomfortable enough before you get to the meeting. And it's going to be weird that you're going to go to this meeting and probably still feel uncomfortable. But eventually, the more you go, it will get better.
Recovery.
Right. Yeah. I like that. So, again, well, thank you again so much. We appreciate you, and we'll look forward to doing this again. And join us next week. We will have Adam back on the show for our Christmas episode. Looking forward to it. And thank you again for being here.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.